Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Do Hard Things podcast. I'm your host, Jay Teague, certified high performance coach, transformational mindset coach. And in this episode of the podcast, I have a fantastic conversation with Sergeant Major Lindsey Pew. Now, before I get into any further, I just want to say that I'm sorry if I'm sounding a little off. You may have even noticed it from the last podcast. Last podcast, I didn't realize it, but I had COVID and I wasn't feeling well. And this is the first day that I've had any form of energy, and I needed to get the intro cut in. So just going to apologize up front if I sound a little off. But COVID's no joke. But this is the beginning of 2022, and this is how we're kicking the year off, I guess. So the good news is I was able to maintain 75 hard. We started 75 hard, so I modified it with supposed to be doing running and strength conditioning, but I did some rucking and a walk along with some restorative yoga. And, having the drinking the gallon of water a day and reading, it just gave me some structure to an otherwise miserable day. But I had the whole gamut of COVID, fever, chills, congestion, and I completely lost my sense of smell and taste, and it's really bizarre. But I think we're finally on the upswing. So just want to apologize up front if I sound a little different. And I wouldn't recommend 75 hard and COVID. Please see your doctor. I think I have to say those things, right? So someone doesn't sue me. But on a serious note, it did give me some structure to the day, and I just want to see if I could actually do it. And I'm glad that I did. So we're on day 7 of another round of 75 hard. So if you're out there listening and you want to join the 75 hard group, I got a group for accountability. Just reach out to me. But hey, in this, before we get into today's episode, I just want to remind you to, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the podcast so you're notified of future episodes. Please leave a review. They go a long way to expanding the reach of the podcast. That's how we get ranked on iTunes. And more importantly, share this message with a friend. There's no doubt that what we talk about today will be impactful and insightful to somebody. So take a screenshot, share it with 2 of your friends, post it, tag me on social media. Let me know what you thought of it. And that really helps us get the word out. This is a grassroots effort, but we're trying to expand this podcast. We've got so many great reviews, so much great feedback from the conversations that we're having here. So, and that's really because of you guys sharing the message and the word. And so I appreciate that. If you haven't done so, check out the shop. We're always loading new gear. For those watching on YouTube, you can see that I've got the Do Hard Things. This is the newest edition of the hoodie, and it's got a tattered flag on it. So keep an eye out for that. I love this one. And I've also got the Do Hard Things patches that you can see here on my hat. They're 2.5 by 3 inch Velcro patch. So go secure your Do Hard Things gear, show the world that you do hard things. And we appreciate the support. As far as today's episode, really excited about having Sergeant Major Pew on. Lindsey and I have known each other for about 12 years or so. When I was a recruiter out in West St. Louis County in the Army, she was one of my, how would you say it? I guess competitors, being in the Missouri Army National Guard. A lot of people may not realize, but the Army National Guard and the active Army are 2 different components. Although we look the same as far as wearing the uniform, we were actually competitors as far as recruiting numbers go. But we didn't see each other that way. We looked at each other as combat multipliers because not everyone wanted to join the active duty and not everyone wanted to join the National Guard. So we helped each other out and developed a pretty good working relationship out there and have kept in contact ever since. She's a fantastic leader, and recently invited me to come speak to her recruiting team. And in doing so, we kind of reconnected, and I invited her to come on the podcast to talk about, some of the nuances, maintaining work-life balance in the military and as an entrepreneur. And so let me read you Lindsey's bio. So Lindsey's 39. She's been on active duty in the Missouri Army National Guard for over 20 years. She joined she joined the military as a combat engineer. She was a bridge crew member when she was 18 and worked her way to Sergeant Major. And for those that don't know, only about 1% of enlisted personnel make it to the rank of sergeant major. And I would say because she's a female, it's probably even more competitive. So it speaks volumes of her abilities. Lindsey grew up in St. Charles, Missouri, as the youngest of three. She pursued her undergraduate degree at the University of Missouri, Columbia, and she deployed to Iraq in 2004. She finished her graduate degree in organizational leadership from Post University in 2012. In this episode, she shares her leadership strategies, how she overcame numerous obstacles and challenges in her various demanding roles as a military recruiter in the various ranks and positions that she held. She shares her strategies to maintain work-life balance, leadership strategies, and other great insights. I think she's a phenomenal leader who gives very sound advice in this episode, and it was an honor to have a great conversation with her. So you can connect with Lindsey in the show notes, and appreciate you listening to today's episode. So let's get, without further ado, let's get into it. All right, my friends, welcome back to another episode of the Do Our Things podcast. I'm Jay Teagues, transformational mindset coach, high performance coach. And today I have the honor and pleasure of having Master Sergeant Promotable Lindsey Pew on with me. Lindsey, how are you doing?
I'm great, Jay. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, thanks for being here. We recently did some work together. You invited me out to talk to some of your recruiters, and we've known each other. Heck, it's been over 10 years, because when I was a recruiter, an active Army recruiter up the street, you were the National Guard recruiter. So technically competition, but we wore the same uniform and we helped each other out. I didn't view you as competition, but yeah, we worked in a very difficult assignment. You're still out there getting after it. You've obviously been incredibly successful. And after the conversation that we had a couple weeks ago, where you invited me out to speak to your recruiters, and it was just, I really thought it would be great to have you come on and hear a little bit more about your story, your challenges, maybe highlight some of the challenges that recruiters face right now, and just get to a little bit more about you. Because when I think about high performing people and females, you're on a very short, strong list of people that I just think are out there getting after it. And so thanks for coming on.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
So my name is Lindsey Pew. I am from St. Louis area. I've been in the National Guard now for 20 years, and I currently run the St. Louis recruiting team for the National Guard. So I manage about 12 soldiers and AGR, and they live all over the place. And we have a mission every year, and we run out there and have to make it happen, get after it. So I've been doing this position, having this job about 4 years now. And then just made the Sergeant Major list recently. And so there could be options next year for promotion on the horizon, which would promote me out of my current position into a new assignment. But currently we are getting after it.
That's awesome. And for those that may not know, Command Sergeant Major is it's the senior, it's the highest. How do I say this? It's the highest rank that you can achieve as a enlisted soldier. Less than 1% achieve that. So that speaks volumes. It's highly competitive. And, just to highlight the fact that you made that as a female is, I mean, I don't, it's 1%. It's probably even less. I mean, I hate to say that, but that's kind of statistically how that's been, right? You kind of breaking some glass ceilings here. So that's awesome.
Well, thank you. No, I never expected to stay in this long, let alone, still have my job today. So there's that. So we're moving in the right direction at least. Yeah, definitely.
So in a very challenging job, for those that don't know, recruiting is a high pressure job. It's incredibly difficult. We'll probably highlight some of that, because I want to talk about my experiences and your experiences going into this. So what are some things that you're currently working on, currently excited about?
Oh my gosh, lots of things I'm excited about. First things first, I'm finishing USASMA, which is Sergeant Major's Academy, this spring. It's a 2-year course. You have to get nominated to be able to attend and go. Every year they pick a select few of NCOs, and then they you put together a packet, a board, goes up to National Guard Bureau, and they select you. So I started 2 years ago, and I get to graduate this spring, which is going to be a huge relief off my workload. But I am writing a book right now. I'm very excited about that. It's going to be I hate calling it self-help book, because I think that kind of sounds kind of lame sometimes, because we all need help, but more of a kind of tackling your belief and confidence, your self-worth, but stories and memoirs from my past experiences. And so I'm kind of excited about that. So I started that a year ago. That was kind of one of my goals, to finish that before my 40th birthday next fall. And then I've got some long-term goals out there, but right now, short-term, I would say my book and finishing school right now.
Those are some excellent, lofty projects. I don't like the term self-help either. It sounds cheesy. It sounds like,
it does.
I don't know, like desperation. It almost sounds like a victim mindset.
It does. Right? And then in bookstores, that's kind of where they plug those kind of, it's not even a memoir. It's more about your experiences, sharing a lot of my failures and using humor and tackling those transitions in life and kind of how to gracefully move through some of those unpleasant chapters, because we have a lot of those struggles in life, but how you can kind of seize the moment and learning to embrace kind of the suck, but then come out on top with it.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to be working on a book next year. I believe it's going to be same type of premise, right? It's going to be something about doing difficult things and how it enables us to be successful. And as I look at my life, I've had some unique challenges. So, and writing a book is a very difficult pursuit in itself.
I Googled a lot of things. Let's put it that way. So I love Google. I love YouTube. And so I just kind of started, I journal a lot. And so for me, I started using some of my past journals as some of my chapter entries, as far as going back and pulling from those experiences and feelings and moments of where you're at during that time in your life. And then those are kind of some of my benchmarks starting off chapters. And then the organization right now is pretty messy, pretty sloppy, but I will solicit some help when I get to that editing and finalizing phase, hopefully next summer.
Yeah, well, I'm excited about that. You have to let us know when you get it published. We'll push it out. And
absolutely.
And that'd be awesome. All right, so let's talk about, I want to kind of go back and what, as a female, and I don't mean this in a negative way. I want people listening, as a female, why'd you join the military? But when you joined, it was a different environment. It's been 20 years, right? So the culture has shifted in the military significantly since I've been in. But I do recall when I first came in that we were still, I had never, I guess, full transparency, I'd never really worked with a female until I came out on a recruiting assignment. I'd been in the military for 10 years and had never worked with a female. So the culture has obviously changed significantly. So take us back, why did you join the military, and what was that like for you when you initially came in?
Sure. Well, when I first enlisted, it was before 9/11. So the life in the military was, especially in the Guard, was a very different mission. Helping out your civil community population was a very different task than after 9/11. So when I first enlisted, my grandfather was in World War II. He was a pilot. And I went to see my other sister. Both my sisters have served. My middle sister was the first one to enlist. She graduated from Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and I went to her graduation. And I saw her company do drill and ceremony, and it was one of the most impressive things I have ever seen. And as soon as I saw them graduate, I was like, you know what? I can do this. The draw for just the challenge, but honestly, I really want to go to college. I really liked the idea of building my resume with something different, because at the time I graduated in 2001 from high school. Getting a bachelor's degree or going to some kind of formal education, air quote, was expected. And so there was no other option but to go to college, and my parents weren't going to pay for it. And so there was kind of a dual draw there. One, family service, but also the competitive edge. But then I was also be able to, pad my resume, doing something a little bit different. So I kind of just jumped in feet first, didn't do a lot of research, went up, talked to a recruiter, said, I'll join Wednesday. Any job you can put me in. I'm going to school for college, business, and give me something fun to do. So I literally went open-minded, jumped into combat engineer. At the time, they got credit for 2 enlistments for every 1 person. So I found out that years later. So I wish we still did that, but it was actually the best decision I've ever made. Hands down, just one of the most knee-jerk reaction, impulsive decisions, but kind of on a whim.
Yeah. So I was a combat engineer. And so when you joined, that was like brand new. This is a new concept, allowing females in combat engineering.
I was one of 4 females in my entire basic training company. So we were like one of the first collective females to go through training together. And that was 200 people, 4 of us were females. That was it. Wow. So when I came home to my unit, back then I was like the second female in my unit. So they didn't separate anything. You know, back then when I first joined, it was confusing. No one knew what to do. So you just trained together. So it was always, hey, you're just a soldier, So it was different for a lot of the leadership because they didn't know how should we house you? Do we have to do separate this, barracks? But at the time, no one knew any better. So everyone sleeps in the same tent together. Everyone, you know, we'll have female shower first and then you guys get 15 minutes, then get out. Everyone else goes in. So it was one of those things that it was kind of new for everyone transitioning. But I think actually nowadays things are it's funny to see how things have progressed now because it's so different now and it's so hypersensitive to everything now. But when I enlisted, everything was just, you're a soldier. I don't care what you look like. If you're a female or not, you're in this company, you have the same tasks and job. And I loved that because you could just be equal.
No, that's great. What was did you have any like unique challenges or something that maybe surprised you or something that had occurred to you in training as they're incorporating women that you had to face and overcome?
I feel like probably the physical aspect of it, just because I was 18 when I enlisted and I was in really good shape. But I think, you know, as a female, you want to make sure that, especially being a minority there, that you are pulling your weight and you're physically like, you don't want anyone to ever say that you're not pulling your weight or not being able to do your part. So as a bridge crew member, you're expected to lift certain bridge pieces. It's kind of like putting big Lego steel pieces together with cranes and manpower. So doing a lot of it, we did a lot of physical labor. So making sure I was able to physically pull my weight, but also, you know, intentionally, literally everything about that. So you're really hyper aware of not being the weak link because you didn't want anyone to say, I have a female on my team or a female on my squad. So you always want to make sure you're physically at your best and at your peak. So I think for me, learning very early on that physical fitness, being at your top physical fitness game kind of earns you a respected place in the military because you're able to compete at the same level as a lot of the males. So you get recognized differently if you can kind of rise the occasion, so to speak.
Yeah. And building bridges, you know, my experience has been with Bailey bridges, but those transoms and all, they're so incredibly heavy. You want to talk about hard labor. It is hard labor and you're trying to construct this thing as quickly as possible. And it's tough. And you have to have a good crew of physically fit people to get the job done.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you ultimately went on active duty. You deployed, one stateside, one overseas. What were some of the challenges that you faced on deployment? I guess ultimately, where did you end up going, and what did you do?
So, kind of some backstory here. Before I deployed, my parents, I come from a divorced family, and so my dad remarried kind of on a whim, and we had a crazy bipolar stepmom, and so my dad, I think. My family situation was not in a very good spot. And when I got deployed, I was 21. I was at college at Mizzou. And I remember calling my dad and let him know, hey, I'm getting deployed. Back then we had a 2-week kind of shot to bang report time. It was not how you know a year in advance now. So we told my dad I'm getting deployed and he just said, hey, I'm at work. I'm busy. I got to talk to you later. And at the time I was kicked out of my house because I was too independent. And so getting deployed at that time was, I feel like mentally just kind of in a very lonely, isolating place. You know, part of it's exciting because you don't know what's going to happen, but it was a very scary time back then because, you know, we were in a huge war and it was televised all over the media. And early in the Iraq war was just a different time. So I have to say that my mental stage going over there was, I would say, rocky at best. I was a young soldier. I was single. I didn't have family support at home. And I remember times that I was deployed that I would feel, I hope that I don't come home just to see if my parents would feel sorry or feel sad that I didn't come home or have any kind of regret. I definitely hit a low point in my life during my deployment. I became extremely close with the soldiers in my platoon. You know, I got deployed before Facebook, MySpace had just gotten started. So the connectivity and the email and the communication routes weren't like it is today. So back then we still did a lot of snail mail. So I feel like for me personally, overcoming that deployment mentality of getting over there and knowing that I have worth, I have a purpose in this life. I don't know what it is, that age, but it's going to be something. But at that time, this is part of my story. And during that time, you hit some I hit some definite low lows.
What year were you over?
2004, 2005.
Okay. Yeah. So I was there 03, 04. So OIF 1. So you were there OIF 2. There wasn't, I mean, it was pretty desperate conditions, definitely when I had left. And like you said, the internet hadn't been around all that long. Like you said, there's some MySpace and things like that, but it's pretty primitive. And even then, I remember just waiting in line. I mean, there were times that we would, some of the reporters would have satellite phones, so we're able to buy some time from them or get a card from them, you know, to hop on the phone. And very intermittently would you have some phone connectivity at some of the major bases, but you didn't have much. There's a lot of snail mail, and it was, I mean, pretty desperate conditions for the most part.
Sure. Being kicked out of my house, I was always just kind of like, this is a fine, no big deal. I'll come back home and kind of do my own thing. But you really have a different sense and value of your life and just enjoying simple things when you get deployed or going to a third world country and not having those things. You really do a lot of reflecting and a lot of growth, whether you want to or not. It's just going to happen because of the circumstances. So I think I came home a completely different person after that deployment, but it definitely was one of the most probably impactful chapters into adulthood for me, just because I learned a lot about myself, but that whole abandonment from your family, but also learning to kind of navigate and accept where you're at in life, but also what you want out of life.
There's a lot of time for reflection for sure. And you get humbled, you know, when you see things that happen out there. I felt more connected to God. And when I came home, I felt like I had a greater, I don't know, just a greater appreciation for life. And I think anyone that has deployed goes through that tremendous growth, because it's unlike any other experience you're ever going to have.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Hands down.
Now, you had some additional challenges while you were over there, correct?
I did. There was I was young and I was extremely naive. And on our pre-mobilization, we had an instructor that, being a female in engineering unit, you have a lot more males than females. And one of our instructor cadre that was training us at Fort Hood, I guess started hanging out with some of our senior leaders and asked, hey, my name was Green at the time. It's my former last name, my maiden name, asked if Green was a cool chick, air quote. Long story short, one day he came back and came into my room. I was back at sick call. And as an instructor, you would think that you hold instructors and higher ranking individuals in a professional regard. And as a young soldier, I was a brand new E5, only been in the military 3.5 years. You trust these individuals. And so, being alone in your room, coming home from the field, thinking, hey, my instructor's coming to get us, take us back out to the field, came in and slammed the door behind him and pushed me on the bed and proceeded to sexually harass and assault me and attempted to rape me. And I have never felt so ashamed, scared, and I think just unprepared in my entire life. I've never felt so helpless. And I felt like as a woman, I've, know the right things to do, know the right points of contact and do your safety things. And I'm very aware and cognizant. But and his whole premise thinking that I was a cool chick that he could hook up with somebody and then no one would ever know because no one was around. It was a very traumatic experience for me. And I was extremely, it was horrible. It was one of the most horrific experiences I've ever had. And it really tainted my view for a while of leadership in some of the senior commands or senior personnel just in the military, because you'd expect better from leaders.
When that happened, Did you immediately report it? Did you go silent?
I would
What was your
say
reaction?
no, absolutely not. At the time, he told me that he would come after me and kill me if I told anyone about it. So I went back to the field, and I was scared. I was scared because I was a young soldier. I don't want to be a tattletale. And then any military organization, loyalty in your word is a huge deal. So, whether it's causing trouble together or if it's following the rules together, you all sink or swim together as a team. So I was not going to be a tattletale and snitch on somebody else. I was just gonna, hey, this must happen. This is, I guess, just normal routine for instructors or people who are grading your company to sleep with people. I don't know. I'm not that person. That's not me. But it really bothered me. And so the next day I was at the chow hall with another soldier in our platoon. I just started crying and told him about it. And he was actually one that he got pissed about it and actually told our platoon sergeant, platoon leader, and was like, you need to file a complaint. This is completely ridiculous. This is not okay. And so my battle buddies were the ones that helped me write a statement and come forward with it. And eventually this NCO was relieved of his duty. He was demoted. I think he was officially eventually kicked out. We were long gone months later in Iraq at this time, once the investigation got completely processed and moved forward. But it was embarrassing. I mean, I didn't want anyone to know about it. I didn't want people to think all of a sudden you are this, female that I can't talk around you because you're going to file a report, or I can't say anything about you, or to you, or in the, earshot because you're going to say something. So, as a female, I didn't want anyone to know about it because you just want things to go back to normal. You don't want anyone to even have some kind of black mark against you. So it was pretty awkward.
Did you find people treated you differently?
I actually found, no, the opposite. I was actually really impressed with how caring and supportive my battles were in my platoon, that they were so disgusted and mortified that this happened to one of their brothers or sisters, that they were like, Lindsey, we're not going to let you not say something about this. This is disgusting. A lot of us are parents and, husbands, and this is not okay. So I was actually grateful for the amount of support from the, my immediate platoon and my supervisors at the time of whatever I needed. They were very supportive of, but yeah, it definitely changed narrative for me for a while, just because I felt, very prepared for something like that and never thought that would happen to me, and just felt stupid, honestly, taken complete advantage of. And I was helpless in this situation at the time. Like physically, I couldn't get him off of me. And it was a very scary feeling.
How did you unpack like the emotion of all that and everything that happened afterwards? I mean, aside from the investigation and going through that process.
It was definitely not unpacked right away. I definitely stuffed everything down during deployment because I had just so much family drama going on at home. And I wasn't talking to any of my family at the time, except, one grandparent. And my mom was loosely in the picture, but I was kicked out of my family. And so everything was kind of messy. So I came home and at the time started dating my now ex-husband. And he was at the time like my safe person. So once I came home, I just had a lot of flashbacks and a lot of just intimacy issues. I just couldn't be close to somebody. I didn't want to confide in anyone. So I started seeing a therapist and a counselor, which was a game changer. Being able to have somebody process through, some trauma and actually unpack it, but able to process where you're able to mentally in a sound way, in a positive way, look forward and look at things to come, not just dwell on that, but able to accept it and move forward. So therapy was a huge catalyst in moving forward and growing from that experience. And then, I want to make others aware of, it can happen to anybody anytime, and not that it's not accepted, it's not right, but it's also something that I think we take, oh, it won't happen to you. It won't happen to this person. They're more than capable of taking care of themselves. But it's one of those things that I wasn't drinking. I wasn't, using drugs. I wasn't wearing something crazy. It was a duty day. I had sick call from poison ivy. It was nothing sexy or romanticizing about it. So it's just one of those things that it can happen to anybody, anytime. So I think counseling was one of the biggest proponents for me in processing that.
What advice would you give someone that is faced with a similar situation of sexual abuse or
I think
rape? Or,
that having a trusted, trusted agents, trusted friends, peers is huge, because having people you can genuinely open up to with non-retributional, but not having a biased opinion. But for me, having people I trusted, I opened up to about this was a huge for me, because it gave me a safe outlet to talk about. And then they were the ones that were actually brought it up saying, we're going to come forward with you, but you need to do this. So I don't think I would have ever come forward or said anything if it wasn't for my battle buddies in my platoon at the time.
Yeah. So having a good support group of people that you could actually trust around you.
Yes.
And in the military, you develop really close bonds with people because of the nature of the work that we do and the stress of the work. And I know for me personally, I can't even begin to imagine the situation that you were in. But something that struck me as a unique experience for me was when I was a recruiter, one of my fellow coworkers was not transitioning to recruiting well. He just deployed. So or redeployed. I think he came back from OAF2, and going from one stressful situation to a completely other stressful situation recruiting, he just didn't do well with it. And there was one night in particular that he brought a shotgun to work. And I'm still to this day so surprised that that it wasn't a workplace violence incident. And I've been through some traumatic experiences in war and seen things happen. But for me, I think that was a profound moment just because of the sheer trust, like the violation of trust. I just couldn't fathom that he would pull out a shotgun and point it at anyone with ill will, given we were wearing the same uniform.
Sure. Oh, the expectations of that too. You're just like, I expect something different of a peer friend as a leader, but even just the training you've gone through and just, you think you know somebody, and then you're like, wait a minute, this is so out of character. And that's surreal.
I can understand being in combat and facing the enemy, right? That's as tragic as that is and tough as that is. But when one of your fellow comrades who you trust with your life, that's what we're trained to do, right? Just trust one another, does something as egregious as that. That really, I ultimately, me and my fellow teammates in the office ended up going to counseling over it to unpack it, because we were so shocked that one of our own would do something like that, And
well, the perception of the soldier too is so different. You perceive this person as this put together leader that's got everything, and then for him to come in with a shotgun or something, that's definitely alarming if you were a coworker or a partner with him. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just like, man, I mean, it definitely, you take trust for granted, and you just never know what kind of situation could arise, And,
sure.
Yeah. It's so that was definitely a tough one for me to unpack.
Absolutely.
So since we're talking about recruiting, let's segue into recruiting. So after deployment, you ultimately unpacked all that. How did you ultimately get into recruiting? And
that's a good story. My recruiting start was a bet, actually. So I went to drill weekend and was planning on getting out of the military. I was in just in a transitional place, came home. I had paid off debt, ready to rock and roll, go back to college and finish my undergrad. And the recruiters at my drill weekend, one was getting promoted to new section chief, and he had a few vacancies and asked, hey, I have some positions open. You want to become a recruiter? Hell no, I am getting out in a few months. I'm done, got back from deployment. No idea. I could never do your job. But you know what? If I did your job, I could out-recruit any of you any day. I was a smart mouth 22-year-old, and I like to gamble. So I was like, hey, I can put my money where your mouth is. I can outdo this any day, no problem. He's like, okay. He's like, well, so we kind of a bunch of shop talk that weekend. By Sunday, I had talked myself into a new recruiting job starting the following week. And this is kind of crazy to think about back then, but I was a full-time student at the time. So they had a program called GWAT where you could recruit for 1 year. We give you a mission, recruit for 1 year, send you to school. If you make your mission and do really well, the next full-time position you could compete for. And so at the time, they had no female recruiters, maybe one in the state. It was not a commodity. And so at the time I was a college student. So I said, hey, here's the deal. I'll re-extend, I'll do your recruiting gig, but I can only work 2 days a week because I'm a full-time college student. I just got back from deployment. I'm not putting college on the back burner. So from now until December, this was September, from now till December, I can only work for you 2 days a week. If you have someone else that can work more than that, good, hire them. I'll start in January, go to night classes, and I'll come in, work a normal active duty schedule. The hiring NCO at the time said, no problem, got it, work with your crazy schedule, you're hired. So for my first 3.5 months, I started recruiting. I only worked 2 days a week, and which is crazy. I would never hire someone if they said that now. But
oh man,
I was like, I can't believe I said that now. But looking back, I was just like so confident about finishing my degree that I was not willing to like postpone it again. And then made some bets that weekend, re-enlisted for 6 years, and yeah, I recruited some of them the first couple years, and now 16 years later, I actually manage that same area that I started in 16 years ago. So
I was a recruiter for 6 years, and we were on some of the same turf. And I'm just, how are you still there? And how have you maintained, not only just maintained, but been incredibly successful? Because I tell you what, those were some of, I look back at my career, I've had some stressful jobs. That was hands down the most stressful, most pressure inducing job that I've ever had. What is your secret?
I will agree with that. I think honestly, I've been very fortunate with my assignments. I recruited for 7 years. Then I bounced to the MEPS building, which was the Military Entrance Processing Station. Was there for a few years. Then I left there, went to operations at State for a little bit, then came back to MEPS, then became a section chief. So
you were always on numbers.
Correct. I mean,
that's stressful.
It keeps getting bigger as you level up as your mission, because instead of your own, you've got a team and then a section. But I think that I was fortunate being able to have some diverse assignments in there to help break it up, because the mundane and the burnout is real. And I would be lying to you if I said that I'm still the same excitement level now as I was 10 years ago. No, it is definitely a way different beast now, and it is way harder than it ever was a decade ago. But people still want to join the military, and we have a need for them, and finding good eligible candidates is still out there. It's just finding the right people to represent the organization and that still want to do it is always a challenge, because we're in a sales force that doesn't offer the civilian compensation. So selling and bottling up that intrinsic value has always been the catalyst for success, in my opinion.
Yeah, what most people, I don't know if the stat is still the same. I'm assuming it is. The stat that always stood out to me is only 1 in 10 Americans are even qualified for military service. Then you have to find those that are willing to raise their right hand, because people don't realize it, but a lot of people are disqualified for medical reasons and for law violations or a variety of other things. And it's really hard to ultimately join the military because of the strict requirements that are placed. And I think most of society, they don't realize that. Some people have looked at the military as last resort. The whole go to war, go to jail from the draft era.
Sure.
Some of that still permeates in various communities. It's absolutely the opposite.
Oh, 100%. It is very difficult to find qualified applicants nowadays, especially because height and weight is a big deal. The last year,
height, weight, yep.
Because of COVID, we have so many young students not on track to graduate, or they're really behind. So where we used to have, the entrance exam, they have to pass, and typically our target market is, I would say, 17 to 25. A lot of these kids can't pass the entrance exam because they haven't really been in traditional school, or they've been in a very hybrid environment the last couple of years, and their social skills aren't really there. And so there's a lot of barriers and a lot more hiccups that we have to kind of overcome, that I think were there years ago, but we could always kind of navigate around them. But nowadays it's much more difficult with the current climate, just because we've got job market is great. Everyone is paying for college now, and everybody is paying for bonuses and flexibility and create your own hours, and you can smoke pot, and you have all these, freedoms that you can do in the civilian world that the military doesn't offer. So it is becoming a much more strategic narrative to recruit to that select group of people that is willing to play the game and be open to a job, open to when they can ship, understand that, you're going to have to do A, B, C, and D and play by the rules, but the payout can be amazing. It's just, you have to risk to get that reward.
Yeah. Now you bring up some interesting nuances that, I mean, the obesity trend was a challenge when I was out there, but, and you also mentioned the social aspect, right? You look at teenagers now, they can't hardly make eye contact with you. They've got to communicate via their, electronic device. And I'm assuming with COVID, I mean, everyone is, the COVID-19 stands for the 19 extra pounds you've gained, during quarantine. For a lot of people,
Right,
that's a legit, real issue.
Sure.
And, and then I'm assuming there's some nuances that have changed with like medical records, because the medical screening and record keeping, some of those things have changed as well, right?
Oh, absolutely. We just have a new automated system that now is going to pull prescription records for every applicant, processing downtown for enlistment. And so, anything that someone doesn't disclose, or if they do disclose it, it could potentially be disqualifier. So if some high school student went on a 2-month, season of having anxiety for a girlfriend, COVID, parents, job, whatever, 2 years ago, that could potentially disqualify them forever for enlistment. And so, it's definitely navigating some of these nuances has definitely been challenging, to say the least.
Now, what are some of the individual challenges that your recruiters have right now?
I think balance, home and work life is probably the biggest one. Because everybody's personal lives have gotten so blended into the professional life that I think finding appropriate boundaries for work and play is a difficult task for anyone. But because our jobs aren't 9 to 5, that I think, and because recruiting is getting harder, I think sometimes it's harder to respect those boundaries when you should be having personal time with your family or kids. You're finding yourself foregoing that family time and continually keep working, or trying to find that next recruit because it's taking that much longer to process somebody or find someone. So I think right now, really respecting those boundaries between personal and professional life is probably the hardest thing, I think, for most of these young recruiters today.
The fact that you as a senior leader have identified that, and the fact that I'm tremendously honored that you invited me in to come in and speak to your team. I think that I could just sense when I walked into your team, you have a very tight knit group of people, and the fact that your training was geared toward that, trying to find work-life balance, as opposed to, well, this is what you need to do and beat them down because they're not making mission. It's a different type of environment than I recall when I was a recruiter. And I think that speaks to your leadership style, that most of recruiting is still kind of set in their old ways. And I think taking the learning and growth mindset approach that you're taking, I see that with your recruiters. They were all eager to listen and learn and take away some nuggets. What are some, from a leadership perspective, what are some of the, how are you inspiring your team to perform at a high level and produce and maintain that work-life balance?
I feel like the beatings will continue until morale improves kind of approach, so to speak, is completely obsolete. That is probably the furthest thing from my leadership style. I am really big on the whole person concept, where I want every soldier, they have families, they have children, they are sons, daughters, peers, soldiers, leaders. They're big in their communities. And so I'm really big on, I want them to be well-rounded individuals and well-rounded at them as actual people, as humans, not just soldiers. Soldiers is just one piece of who they are, and the uniform is one facet. So for me, it's a lot of it is about helping them balance that, but also helping them and hone those other sides of them to grow. Because I want to look at long-term sustainability, not just short-term gains. Because short-term gains to me is a stick and carrot, and that is the beat you down until you get what I want for you. That's not long-term growth or sustainability and what's best for them. Because what's best for them is to help them grow as individuals, because then they're going to help live out their purpose, but also become, organizationally and results driven by becoming the best version of themselves. So I really want them to grow into the best version of themselves. So
I love that. I mean, the from the Army's perspective, it's a broadening assignment. You're coming out of what you're typically doing from your military occupational skill specialty, and doing something off the beaten path, which is usually recruiting, drill instructor, some other type of instructing position. And it's designed to make you more diverse, more well-rounded as a leader within the organization. However, I feel that oftentimes we get so incredibly short-sighted from the numbers, the recruiting mission. There's such high pressure to achieve that recruiting goal that we kind of lose focus from a leadership perspective, and we just start, just beating people down.
It's a hard line to navigate, because, part of it is, yes, you're rated on numbers and that's your job, is to recruit. But the other side of it is that I tell my team constantly that your value and your worth is not your number on the scale. It's not your number on the spreadsheet, because you equally all bring a contribution to this organization and to the team and a greater purpose. But most of them feel like their worth is only a number. And that is a very, very negative, I say them saying, on a whole, that's kind of where recruiting's been in the past, where your value is only a number. And that's a very negative place to be, because your organization will not thrive in that kind of environment if that's the only mindset that you carry.
I felt that I was in that type of an organization when I first came on board in recruiting. And for me, I came into recruiting right after my deployment to Iraq, which is 04, 05. I mean, I was in Iraq 2003 to 2004. I had received orders to recruiting duty. And for me personally, I just thought I wanted to go special forces, and I was going to go to selection and possibly maybe become a drill instructor. But that was my plan. Recruiting was off the it wasn't an option for me. That wasn't in my cards. It wasn't. But ultimately, the Army tells you got to go do things. You got to salute the flagpole and drive on. So I go to recruiting school, and I was still early in my career. I was a staff sergeant, but I still wasn't. I was confident in my job and my own abilities. But from a communication standpoint, I came up from an abusive home, so I had a hard time talking to people. I lacked confidence. I had confidence around people that I knew. But out in recruiting, I mean, you're required to go out and just talk to people and give presentations. And during the time of the height of the Iraq war, there were a lot of people that were, I appreciate the military, but not my son, not my daughter, And you would be out in the community and people would shake your hand, thank you for your service. Then there'd also be protests and people, spitting at you. And it was, and you're out in uniform in these communities, and it's almost like everyone's like staring at you all the time. Like it was just such an awkward feeling constantly, on top of the stress of the numbers, some of the toxic leadership. I'd heard some of our, when you're in the recruiting field, that, some of the senior leaders, they convert to be a recruiter, and that's their job for the rest of their career. Some of us, like me, we're a detailed recruiter. So we come out for 3 years and then we're supposed to go back to the force. We're considered, I've heard the term used, summer hire, right? So ride those guys into the ground, right?
Sure.
And burn them out, and then you had these, in the active Army, you have the new recruiter program. So the first 9 months you're on probation, you don't meet your numbers, you get sent back. And those are negative marks, right, for your career. You're not going to get a good evaluation, and no one wants to go. I mean, no one wants to go back to the active duty with negative marks. And I was a high performing non-commissioned officer, so I didn't want to fail. But when I first came out there, I just thought that the job was incredibly, incredibly hard for me as a person to go out of my way and talk to people about joining the Army, and you're constantly getting rejected. No. It was so damn hard. So damn hard.
It is. It's a weird job, because I feel like other sales jobs, you have a tangible item you're selling.
Yeah.
You can sell a car, you can see it, feel it, touch it, drive off with it. You have that warm fuzzy. But recruiting, you're selling a lifestyle. So it's a very different sales, because they're buying you as a person. Yeah. But then once they buy it, you can't, there's nothing tangible there. And and the compensation doesn't work like that either. So you're just salary, whether you're zero or hero. So I feel like it's very different and motivating and rewarding soldiers, because it's extremely intrinsic and there's nothing, tangible about the exchange. And so besides a handshake or a hug, but COVID made that weird too. So I don't know, it's one of those things that, he's trying to make the best of it, but it has been different assignment 100%, but it can be awesome though. It can absolutely be one of the best feelings in the world when you help a young soldier out or an applicant that's wanting to do something and you watch them grow and develop is super, super rewarding.
Yeah, I still kept in contact with a lot of people that that joined. Yeah, there's a lot of people that didn't join, and I still maintain contact with them, and they just appreciate, you know, the interaction that we had. For whatever reason, they were disqualified or they just decided not to do it, but we still maintain contact. And I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about communities. I was incredibly humbled that so many people joined as a combat engineer, because, you know, I would take them down to MEPS. They go see the counselor. I'm not really a part of that. And they're like, hey, yeah, I'm done. And I'm a combat engineer like you. I was like, they wanted to be like me. Like, you know, I came from a broken home. I'm nobody, you know, and that was incredibly, incredibly humbling.
Sure. Absolutely. You're impactful. You're an influential person in their life. That's very cool.
Yeah. And you're the first, you're generally oftentimes the first person that they meet in the Army, beside maybe a family member, but authentically from the United States Army. And those interactions are important. And that's one thing I remember, you know, saying that to your recruiter, like, even if you don't, someone doesn't join, you know, you might be the only person that they ever talk to that is from the United States Army. You're the only impression that they have. So you got to carry yourself as such. And there's a lot of pressure in that.
Absolutely. The expectation once you put a uniform on is very different from the civilian side. People expect you to conduct yourself, talk, have all this experience and knowledge when you wear that uniform. And so it definitely puts, I think, a different pressure on. And then, yeah, recruiting, they have this, you know, perception of what they want or need. So yeah, there is a lot of other outside pressures, I think, that come with wearing a uniform, but also in a recruiting aspect because of that public interaction that you have that other soldiers don't have as frequently.
Yeah. So a new recruiter, you know, first day on the job, in a high pressure situation, maybe not in your organization, because you have something unique going on, but what advice would you give them about how to navigate their way and transition into this incredibly difficult job?
It's funny because I'm very big about being yourself. So I'm really big about, there's a lot of successful people around you. It's great to watch them learn, absorb, and really kind of just listen to see what they do, how they do things. But you need to be yourself. The only way you're going to be successful in this is to 100% be yourself and own your truth, because your story and your experiences are like no one else, and no one can duplicate that. And the more you own your own chapter, your own story, the better recruiter you're going to be. Because because all my recruiters are very, very different, but we all recruit extremely differently too, because we have different backgrounds, different niches. We talk different. Our everything about us is totally individual. So I would 100% hone in on them being uniquely them and highlighting their individual strengths.
Yeah. Be themselves. Now, you made this point earlier about being well-rounded and having balance, and the Army doesn't define you, but so many people get so wrapped up into the day-to-day grind of the Army and the military. How does someone put boundaries on that?
Man, that's a good question. I think that the more you know yourself, the better you can handle and tackle everything else that comes at you. Because I think that the boundaries, you know, with the military, it's always I need more. I need more. I need more time. I need more this. I need another year, another rank, another paycheck, another weekend, 2 more hours. They always need something from you. You know, it's one of those things that's for you to know yourself well enough as an individual, as a leader, as a parent, mom, daughter, whatever, spouse, to know that, you know, where your boundaries are at the end of the day. When you hang up your uniform, what's going to be important to you, and what are, you know, where your values are, where is your line? Because, you know, you can give a lot to an organization, at the end of the day too, your family and the people you love and the things that you influence, and, you know, things that really matter are going to be there at the end. So I think know yourself really well.
Yeah. I have paid the price myself when I was a recruiter. Because the Army's all about get the mission first, sure. Right? Mission. And so I carry that over into recruiting. Like, man, this is the toughest job I've ever done. So I'm going to grind it out. I'm going to put the work in. And what ultimately happened was I didn't manage my stress well. Forms of escapism was alcohol, playing video games, just a lot of negative things. I quit. I started slacking off on PT because come home at night, drink a 6-pack, and play video games all night. And I didn't want to go to bed because I knew as soon as I woke up, the whole grind was going to start over. So I slept less. I wake up in absolute reaction mode. And it ultimately took its toll. You know, I took my frustrations out on my now ex-wife. I, you know, didn't want to hang out with my friends. I kind of became a very miserable person. And that really affected my ability to show up and recruit, right? I'm exhausted. I'm irritable. And how's that going to come over when I'm sitting down trying to talk about the Army? And here I am. I hate the Army right now because of the situation that I'm in. And I ultimately had to figure out that I need to break the cycle. And, you know, putting some boundaries, you know, like I started reading. I started listening to how much news I started shutting off the news a little bit, started reading some books, and started to curb the drinking a little bit, put some boundaries on there, and really start focusing on how can I develop myself so I can make this easier and survive this this hellish tour that I'm in, because currently it's not working. And you know, I started focusing on putting some boundaries and incorporating, like, okay, I'm going to go out and ride my mountain bike. We had Castlewood right up the road, you know, and I'm taking my mountain bike and I'm going to go ride for a few hours and just decompress. And instead of playing video games and staying up all night, you know, I would spend time riding my bike or getting back into exercise and things like that.
Sure.
How do you how do you balance your work and life?
I would say that I'm a very big gut person. So I have a routine. I think most people thrive on some kind of predictability and a routine, but I definitely wake up early. I like to read, and I really like to have my morning meditation time and set my intentions for the day. So I find that when I don't get a workout in during the week or do my journaling and or reflection time, I start becoming much more reactive, and I don't make the best decisions in a reactive mode. So for me, I really make sure that I schedule in and I have downtime in my week where there's nothing planned or nothing that's filling every space. Just either have processing time or just to have that time just to allow for yourself. So for me, I've really learned to say no a lot more in the higher I think ranking I become, the more I learn to say no. Things that don't bring me joy or value in my life, I don't have place for it. So and it's not in a mean way. It's just I have to respect my time, my privacy, but also things that I value, which is, you know, family or time with my boys or, you know, time for work or time for myself. I really have to make sure I stick to some kind of a schedule, but also, you know, have some Lindsey time, which includes, you know, taking a bath or going to the gym and journaling are probably my favorite few things. That's just for me.
Yeah. So what I teach to my students is we call it breakout time. That's a term from the book, The 12-Week Year. Having breakout time. It's a 3-hour block of time for yourself. This is not an optional thing. This is mandatory. This is not like, because everyone is like, I don't have time to take care of myself.
Sure. It's needed.
If you do not take care of yourself, because you're giving every other minute of the week, you're giving. And if you don't take at least 3 hours for yourself to decompress, you're not going to show up as your best version of yourself. And, you know, especially in recruiting, I really learned how to block my time. That's where, you know, they give you the planning guide and you really learn time management. But oftentimes I didn't put the boundaries up for, I learned the hard way about putting boundaries in for myself. Sure. But once I started blocking out that time for myself and I got back in the routine of I'm going to get up early before anyone needs me, because we had the triplets while we're out there too. So that was an incredible lesson in time management there. But once I started to develop that rhythm and routine, my life started to get better because I felt like I had more control and I wasn't nearly as reactive. But if you're constantly in a state of reaction and you don't take the time out for yourself, that selfish time for yourself, people say it's selfish. It's absolutely not selfish. You need to, because it's selfish for you not to do it because you're not showing up on your A game for everyone.
Oh, absolutely. I think your stress just continues to keep compounding because you don't know how to fix it, how to gain control. And so you keep kind of spiraling into this reaction mode, thinking that all these other external things are going to fix it, when realistically you have to kind of look inward and decide, what am I going to change about my daily habits or myself, or what I'm doing to fix this so I can gain some control and some clarity about what I'm doing and how to be better aligned with my purpose or my leadership style or whatever you're doing, your task.
I've learned over the years that a lot of the pressure that the Army puts on is often self-imposed. It's because we want to achieve the mission. Your senior leaders want to achieve the mission as well. And we almost to a fault will just grind ourselves in the ground to achieve it. And what I've learned over time is that B+ work is good enough. And this is very difficult for me to wrap my head around, because oftentimes I want to be like, I want the A, I want the A+ in everything that I do. But B+ is good enough, because that enables you to still do a good job and carve that time out for yourself and just say no to some things, or delegate, or try to figure out, how can you shore up? Or maybe this report or this PowerPoint presentation isn't going to be as good because, you know what, at lunch, I'm going to go, have lunch with my kids at school today. And that's more important, because if I don't do that, and stop skipping those things, because those things are the most important. Your family is going to be there when you take this uniform off, and putting some boundaries and being okay with that is definitely difficult to do in an environment where you're just like, go, 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 you gotta get the mission done. But you absolutely need to do that.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's hard too, because I totally love that idea of, your B+ attitude about it, because it's definitely, in the military, it's 100% or you fail. That's how they make everything feel that way. And so it's important to kind of realize at times that, you are doing just enough, and you are okay where you're at. You're not failing at everything, and that, every fire isn't the most important fire of the day. So
understand your commander's intent, and your commander's commander, the boss's boss. If you know what they want you to do, just deliver that.
Sure.
9 times out of 10, that's good enough. And a lot of these other stuff that we do, we tend to overdo it and put too much energy in it, when we need to put a boundary on it. Like, hey, B+ is good to go. For me, that's my metric. Is this B+ work? I'm okay with that.
Sure.
And good, because I'm going to go take care of myself now.
Absolutely.
Because if I don't do that, I'm going to put A+ work in, and then I'm going to eventually stop putting in work at all, because I've, overextended myself. So
go from 0 to 0, 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So a brand new recruiter, or maybe your recruiting team, what are some advice that you give them to hold boundaries and put some boundaries in for their life and take care of themselves?
I'm really big. First things first, I'm always like, your attitude is a huge deal. So to me, I'd rather have somebody with a positive attitude, and maybe not as bright intellectually, versus someone that's got all the smarts in the world that come with a bad attitude. Because I feel like so many things stem from having a good attitude. But for them, for boundaries in place, a lot of it is kind of coming down to what your priority, having like a tier system of what your priorities are for the week. What do you need to do? What do you have to do? And what do you want to do? And so there's different things of, I need to do these things. I have to do these, but I want to do these things, and trying to prioritize some of those things. That way you can identify what can give, what can take, where things can plug and play. I think everyone struggles with boundaries though, and struggling with balance. I don't think that it gets any easier as you move up or on any occupation. I think you find different ways for yourself to normalize and kind of feel where your balance gets off. Because some people need more alone time, some need more family time. I think kind of the more you know yourself, the more you can kind of self-regulate some of those things. Because I know the older I get, the more I really need my alone time for recharging. So part of my balance each week is having scheduled some quiet alone time where I have nothing, like I can be completely quiet and silent, whether it's drive home, in the bath, whatever, for my own self-regulating balance.
Yeah. I love how you described that time management is a skill, and being able to identify what's truly important, what are the things that are, not as important, they need to get done. And then some of the things are like, what are the nice to-dos? A lot of times people just have all of that just jumbled together. They overwhelm themselves. But being able to, look at the day, like I've only got, so many hours in the day. This is what needs my attention. And, what I teach is, when you map out your day, you need to look at, what are your 3 major projects? If you have more than 3 projects, you're overextended already. You can't get everything done. You need to only have 3 projects. Understand what the next 5 moves are with each one of those projects. And then at a minimum, you need to identify, what are the 4 walls of your house? Your hard is a mnemonic. What are you doing to be intentional about your health and wellness today? What are you doing about your, I call affluence and wealth creation? How are you making money? How are you managing your finances today? How are you being intentional in your important relationships today? Like, are you having lunch with your wife? Are you, going out with your kids? Are you calling an old friend? And then what skill are you developing? I don't have time to read a book or develop. That's bullshit. You got to constantly skill up. So what are you doing to educate yourself? Those are 4 things that you have to do each and every day. and identify your 3 major projects. And then anything else outside of that, like it's got to be a no, or it needs to be delegated, or, and that's just a simple framework. But people want like some kind of task management system or some project management program, something fancy. You don't need that. What you need to do is get simple, and you need to stop the distraction and get focused on the things that truly matter and say no. Start using that no muscle and say no to things that are overextending you.
It's a valuable skill. I love it. Saying no is probably one of the best, I feel like, tactics and things. It's hard to do, but once you start figuring out how powerful it is, it feels extremely empowering, and kind of you kind of get to take your time back, so to speak, and kind of start owning your 24 hours a day when you really find the power in that no.
And you can say no politely. Like a great way to say no is, say someone's inviting you to come do something, volunteer for them. Hey, I appreciate that you thought of me, of all the people that you could think of to invite me to your event to come volunteer. However, I've got some other competing priorities right now, and I'm unable to make it, but please let me know how the event goes and consider me in the future, and I just wish you all the best. That's a really nice way of saying it's not a priority for me. No, good luck. Peace out. And be okay with that.
Right. Oh, absolutely. 100%.
And so I think people need more of that. That's something else that I teach. Like, you got to say no to things. What are your 3 projects? What are the core 4 lines of effort in your life? Do you have balance? Because if you're overwhelmed or you're out of balance, you're not focusing with intention on those things that matter the most. But people are so caught up in overextending themselves. They're volunteering for organizations. They're running their kids around everywhere. They're not taking care of their health and wellness. They get stressed out, and then they start doing, negative things. Like they're hitting the drive-through, they're scrolling social media when they should be working out, and they're skipping, relationship time with their kids, and all these things. It's just compounding interest of failure.
Sure. So absolutely. I like it.
Well, we're right about an hour. Is there anything else that you want to talk about in regards to recruiting, or any other advice that you would give a new recruiter that's
I think that the best thing for new recruiters to do is kind of absorb and listen and take everything in from experience around them, but then they can decide to kind of make it their own, because everybody's got something different and unique to bring to the field and share for the greater collective purpose. But yeah, that's kind of about it. I think I kind of like to do my stuff with purpose, passion, and kind of priorities. So that's kind of where I leave things with my team. And yeah, I appreciate you having me on your podcast today, Jay. And
we're not done yet. I got a couple more questions for you. I just want to transition out of recruiting, but a couple more things.
Good. I was like, I thought we're heading out. Fair enough. I'll hang on.
We will soon, but I got a couple more for you.
Well, shoot, I'm ready.
Well, I always like to finish up the podcast with high performance habits. I want to know, first question is like, what does your morning routine look like? You alluded to your morning routine. What does that look like for you?
I get up at 5 a.m. I do a meditation and a intention for the day. Usually do a little bit of journaling at that time. I go to the gym in the morning, not always in the morning. Sometimes my gym schedule rotates depending on recruiting. So if I hit the 5:30 class, that's good. I go to a burn boot camp by my house. It's a 45-minute kind of HIIT workout training. They've got classes throughout the day. So my personal goal is at least go to the gym 4 times a week, give or take, intermittent with some other running and some other cardio activities. But big thing is I journal, go to the gym, come back, have coffee, and then get my son up, get him ready to go, and then take him to school. Leave the house by 7:30. And every night I do meal prep. And so in the morning, heading out the door, we grab our lunches, we take our food with us, drop him off at school. Then usually I'm at the office by 8. And then my day's kind of started. I operate a lot by sticky notes and a lot of prep time. So I'm very big on, I leave the office for the day. I always have a sticky note of top 3 things I'm gonna get done for tomorrow. If I take my computer home, which I do every night, or some other little planner I have, I always make sure that's in view. So I know what's going to happen for the next day, the top big things. If something happens that evening or later, I add to my sticky note. And then as the day goes on, I cross those things off the list the following day. So, but I find that everything I do is a prep at night, and then the morning is a lot smoother. I find that if I'm off in the morning or overslept or decided not to pack my lunch or prep something or running late, it throws my entire not day off, but you start to feel like you're behind everything because your morning wasn't set and smooth. So I really like to start the morning early. And I feel like my journaling, meditation, and my little 15 minutes in the morning to kind of set my day up is always the best way I start my day.
I love that. I think starting off the day on firm footing is it impacts the entire day. If you wake up and roll out of the bed and you're in reaction mode, you're going to be in reaction mode the rest of the day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it helps that routine process and gives some predictability to, what you're about to encounter for the day, and also puts you in a mentally good framework for what you're about to do.
But Lindsey, I'm not a morning person. I don't want to wake up at 5. What advice would you give?
Okay. Then you need to have some kind of routine where you're figuring out whatever your priorities are for that week or day that you can schedule that in, because my fiance is not a morning person in any capacity. He hates getting up in the morning, so that's not his cup of tea. So I get that. So for him, he thrives at night. So at nighttime is when, you can do your reading or your journaling or your reflection or something that you set a time for in the evening for your workout or your meal prep, whatever that is. As long as it's your time, you can mold it however it works best for you. Yeah. But making that, intention to.
But if you wait until late in the day, the chances of it getting stepped on by another competing interest is astronomical.
It can be. I know people but again, it goes back to time management. If you can manage your time and you know that deep down you're most productive from 11 to 8, then, hey, if your best planning time is between 4 and 5, then that's what you do. I have people I work with that do that their afternoon, that's how they're wired. I'm not like that. So yeah, but it's, hey, to each is their own. However you thrive, you do you.
Just make the time to get it done. Be disciplined about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
How do you show up with intention with your family?
I would say for me, scheduling it. As lame as that is, I'm a scheduler. I'm very spontaneous on certain things, but when it comes down to, I feel like date nights with Rodney or time alone with Max, we have to work around a lot of scheduling conflicts my son plays a lot of sports. So right now he's got flag football and basketball and baseball. So we've got a lot of scheduling. So then there's days that he's at dad's house, or I've got drill weekend, or my fiance's traveling. So for us, it comes down to scheduling, where we have a dry erase board in the kitchen. We sync our calendars on our phones. If it goes in the calendar, it's synced up to our phones of, hey, this is going to be date night, or leave this off, or we make sure it's on the dry erase board. So we know, hey, that's going to be Mom and Max night, or that's going to be date night. So I make sure I'm pretty intentional about those things, because they're very important to feel connected and to feel like you are on the same page, and have that continuity at home is, to me, a component of success.
Being intentional about, I love this, because so many people are like, why would I schedule my time with my family? Why would I do that? Why would I sync my phone with everyone? That should automatically happen, right? It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. If you do, it's going to get stepped on by TikTok, Facebook, work. So many other things are going to distract you. But when you're intentional about your time, you show up with intention, and nothing steps on it. You're going to show up better and more often. And so I love the fact that you do that, and that you mentioned that, because this is a hard concept for people to wrap their head around sometimes.
It's, in my opinion, well, in today's environment, everybody is so busy trying to juggle so many things. And so for us, we prioritize the few things we need to, and then, hey, I'm going to set aside, like, we know tomorrow night, we've got this, and then we've got date night, or we've got family time on this weekend, or let's schedule in a long weekend here, or whatever it is. It's so important. And it creates something to look forward to too, for your family or kids, or whatever it looks like. I mean, I think there's so many positives about doing those kind of scheduling. And then you can, switch it up with who schedules what, or who creates the plan for the evening, whether it's the kid or the parent, or it can be fun. Yeah,
definitely make it fun. Now, when I was down there talking to your group of recruiters, you mentioned the 3x5 card. This is more for your partner and your relationship. This is a tip that you learned. Could you explain to us what the 3x5 card is, and how you can show up in your relationship with more intention?
Yes, this is actually kind of funny, because we got this from TikTok, and I don't even watch TikTok for this reason, but we got this idea from somebody. I'm a big proponent, big fan of counseling. And so my fiance and I have both been divorced, and we both want to have a strong, successful relationship. So we're both in counseling right now, couples counseling and individual. And in a TikTok video was talking about how you can meet the needs of your partner. And so what you do is you have both of you write down on a 3x5 card 3 things that you need from your partner and how they can fulfill that need from you. No matter what you write or they write, everything is accepted. There is no making fun. There is no, devaluing it or deprioritizing it for anybody. It's whatever you feel that you need. Write it down, and then how that person can help fulfill that need. So, for instance, one of mine was feeling connected every week. I need to make sure that we feel connected and for me on the same page, and not just checking in what you're doing for that day, but actually having conversation. So I make sure that every week we set aside, like a little evening time. On Thursday nights is usually our night that we go to bed early. We hang out in bed and just talk about whatever's going on and really have like in-depth conversations about things throughout the week, whether it's personal challenge, whether it's something that you experienced that you didn't get a chance to really dive into because of other scheduling stuff. But we make sure we have that conversation time each week because I need that to feel connected to him. Mm-hmm. So we were both much more intentional about, okay, he's like, I can set aside time every week and we'll figure out what that looks like. It could be something as simple as making dinner every week. I need a family meal twice a week, or I need to go to the gym 4 times a week. It could be anything you want.
So you fill out your 3 things. That's what you do for the week. You hand him the card. He hands you a card. That's what you guys do.
And
no questions asked.
No questions asked. We haven't done it every single week. We just both have done it for the needs. I feel like until those needs really change or shift. Right now, we're still on the same 3 we've been doing for a while.
I love this idea. I love it.
I like it because it puts into perspective, and I like it because it gives you a real opportunity to help that person. How can they fulfill that need? Because I think a lot of times women and men communicate things they need, but they don't know how to help the other person, like in the action piece of it, how they can show up for that actual need. And so we come from different planets. So I think it's important to help them connect those 2 dots.
Men are from Mars, women are from Venus, or something.
Absolutely. Something like that. Yeah. Ain't that the truth?
Yeah. That's a great tactic. I'm going to give that a shot. What book or books have made the greatest impact on you? Maybe a book that you have gifted the most.
I would say it's kind of an old book from 2013. It's the book called Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg. That book and Start With Why by Simon Sinek are still some of my favorite books. I like it because it's just extremely empowering. It's all about leaning into the table, leaning into your ideas, your thoughts, your processes, and just not being scared. I think that a lot of people in life, including myself, have gone through phases where you really weigh in on these perceptions of other people, what they think of you, or you live in this fear mindset of what will they do or say if I try this or do that. And it really impacts a lot of your decisions and how you think about yourself and how you view yourself. But these books, I think, really give a lot of context to your confidence, your self-worth, but also understanding the value you bring into yourself, your organization, and your purpose. But then the Start With Why I love, just because if you are in any kind of business operationally minded, it is a great context for cultural change in a impactful and positive way. Absolutely.
Those are great books. Well, I haven't read Lean In, but I've read Start With Why. It's an excellent book. But no, that's great. And one thing I forgot to get to, I wanted to get to, is that you are also an entrepreneur and you have been very successful with Roden and Fields. How do you manage that with your already incredibly challenging schedule? And what are your keys to success as an entrepreneur?
I do have a side business. I hate calling it side business too, but it's something else I do on the side.
Side hustle, the biz.
I hate saying like it's not a side, because to me, it's there's a business where you make money at it. It's a hobby if you pour money into it and you don't get anything out of it. So for me, it's still making money. So I'm going to call it a business. But it's absolutely going to be my startup retirement plan when I'll dive into it a lot more when I get closer to retirement from the military. But I've been doing it about 6 years now. I absolutely love it. Same thing. I schedule in time each week to work on Rodan and Fields. So usually it's Sundays. A lot of times it's my weekends. I'll spend an hour on Friday afternoon, an hour on Sunday, scheduling time that I'll work on it. I have not been as diligent about it as I'd like to be in the past. Sergeant Major's Academy has kind of taken over that time slot for that kind of importance. And so for me emotionally, sometimes it's hard to handle all those things. I'm fortunate enough that my business is pretty sound and pretty stable, that it kind of autopilots every month, which I hate saying that, but it does. So I work at a few hours each week, which I absolutely love, but I schedule that time in. And then as I get close to retirement, I absolutely will be beefing up those time hacks and putting a lot more time into the weekly, intentional hours, because I want to, continue to keep growing it, because every year it grows, and it's been a really big blessing for our family.
Yeah. Yeah. I think about starting a business, right? When you're in a full-time career, and there's a lot of people that are doing that. There's probably a lot of people listening that are trying to juggle that. What advice would you, and I like the fact that you identify a hobby. And that's why I ask people, is your business, is it a hobby, or is this like a legit business? Because you're treating it like a hobby.
Sure.
What advice would you give someone that is in that transitionary period of working a full-time career and trying to get a startup off the ground, and treat it like a business to be successful? Because you've had some success with it.
I would absolutely, for them, identify what they want out of it. Because for me, I had a benchmark of what I wanted to make every month from this business. I was like, hey, I want to make, match my salary with Army every month, or whatever that looks like. How many hours each week do I have to delegate to make X to equal whatever they want? If they want to just make, $500 or less, great. But they need to identify, I think, that from the very, very get-go of introductory, I'm doing this business side job, whatever they want to call it, but what is their end goal, or what is their short-term goal with it? Because that to me is going to tell them how much they have to actually invest on their own time, because everybody wants to do these things and spend 20 minutes a week and think they're going to make $2,000 a month. And that's completely false. They're not going to do that. They have to put in a lot more work, and they have to be very intentional and extremely focused about what they do and when. And it does take a lot of targeted time to make that kind of money. When you first get started, if they want to make 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,000 a month. So I would just say, figure out what their actual goal is, then figure out what that looks like each week, and break it down to small components.
Yeah. Having clarity on what specifically you want from the business, what are your SMART goals? And then that enables you to reverse engineer a plan. Yes. If entrepreneurism was easy, everyone would be doing it.
Absolutely.
And this is the thing, is the self-discipline and having focus, but it really starts with why, right? It starts with why, having some clarity and backwards planning that. So I love that, because there's a lot of people that are trying to get something off the ground. I see a lot of people treat it as a hobby. I've done that in the past with some things I've learned over time, because I'm full force of what I'm doing now in getting this thing off the ground. But it takes some grit and having clarity and having SMART goals and reverse engineering like a legitimate business plan. Sure. But a lot of people just kind of, like you said, their expectations and what they're doing just doesn't match, and it leads to failure.
I think it's important too to know what you're getting into and how involved or disinvolved you can be. Because I know when I started Rogaine Fields, I knew I can be all in when I want to be, and seasons of other chaos, I could level it down a little bit. I still have the business there. It's always going to be there, but I can decide my involvement level, and my involvement level dictates the direction of my check each month. But I chose this job and profession because I knew that it would always have some stability with it. Depending on what each individual wants out of it, they need to also know that, is it a seasonal thing? Is it something that they have to go in all in 100% from this ground up? Can they, what that looks like for them during their whatever chapter in life? Because I think that, for me, I knew I'm going to be military for another 3 or 4 years. So I need something that can fluctuate with my flexibility depending on when I have more and less time.
Yeah, so absolutely. That's great advice. Great tips on that. Because I know a lot of people that being an entrepreneur is difficult, and a lot of people struggle with that.
Sure. Absolutely.
Well, I always like to pass the mic off to my guests so they can ask me a question or questions. So what question do you have for me?
I always want to know, what kind of legacy are you wanting to leave for your others? Like when you down the road, like when you all done, retired, good to go, whatever the case is, when you're old and 95 on a rocking chair, what is something that you would like to leave as a legacy, or a lasting impact? Like what is it that you want to,
That's a very deep question.
It is.
And I think about, I just want to have made an impact on people. I don't want to have squandered my life, and I want to live a life where I was remembered as the guy that didn't have any regrets. I don't want to have any regrets on my deathbed. and I want to be remembered as someone that made an impact on people to live a better life, to chase their dreams. And, I want to leave I want my kids and my grandkids to know who I was, maybe be an inspiration to them. Because I literally came from nothing. My family immigrated here from Europe. On my father's side, they were German. My mother's side, I'm first generation American. And I grew up in a broken home, and I literally came from nothing. And I just want people to know that with grit and determination, like if they do the hard things, they can live a successful, happy life. And I just want to take the lessons that I learned along the way, that people that didn't teach me anything, not having a father. And I have sucked at so many things in my life. I sucked at relationships. I've sucked at with finances. I've been awful at a lot of things. I'm like, and it caused me a lot of pain. I'm like, I don't want anyone to ever feel that way again. And so that's my legacy, is just, I want to be known as the guy that maybe helped someone along the way to live a better life, and that my kids are taken care of, and that they can thrive in this remarkably abundant country that we have. Yeah, we've got a lot of flaws and issues, but it's also like one of the best places you can live and thrive.
Absolutely.
And so I guess
I like it.
Yeah.
I love it. No, that's great. That's a great answer.
Yeah.
I love it. That's all kinds of good things. When someone thinks about you or name and
yeah,
they're kind of highlight reels like, hey, he's a positive zest for life. It lived life with no regrets. And you know what? This guy did hard things. I like it.
Now I can't leave you off the hook. What about you?
I want to be an inspiration for other people, kind of like you, but I want to, I definitely just want to help other people. I think the bottom line is that everybody's on this earth to kind of want to help somebody else. And I think genuinely the human population is wired to be good, truly good. I really would love to be a example to my son. He is like the light of my life. And so for Max, I really want to be down the road. I want to be a role model for him. But I see myself down the road in a grander scheme, hopefully speaking on stage somewhere, doing a motivational discussions, talks. But I really want to be able to know that help other men and women, soldiers, people, it doesn't matter anything, what your background is, anything, that you can live a life without limits and that anything is possible. I think that we tend to put ourselves in these boxes and these limits, and we always think that things can't be done. And we really kind of sometimes shell down into these comfort zones in our life. And so I want to help other people get past those comfort zones and find their best version of themselves without limits.
I absolutely love it. And there's no doubt that, as you've done an incredible job in the military. You're about to be a sergeant major, and you got a few more years left. There's no doubt that you've left a legacy, and you've done a lot of great work with the men and women that you've served with. I sense that when I came in the room, like they really look up to you, and I see what you guys post from your team photos and whatnot. And just knowing you as a person, there's no doubt that there's a lot of greatness left, and you're going to be able to help a lot of people. So I appreciate knowing you. I thank you for taking the time to be here today. And is there anything else? How can people get in contact with you?
I am on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram, and I'm also on Facebook. So I'm on Lindsey Pew at Instagram, and I think my name's pretty plain on LinkedIn as well. Just my name, Lindsey Pew.
Yep. I'll add all the contact information in the show notes. So people want to reach out to connect with you, they can do that. And thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
Well, thanks, Jay. I really appreciate you inviting me on your podcast, and it was a great experience. And thanks again.
Awesome. So for everyone listening, keep doing hard things. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Do Hard Things podcast with Lindsey Pew. And if you gained any insights, I would love to hear about it. You can reach out to me on social media. You can connect with me. I'm on all social media platforms. You can send me an email and let me know what you thought. Take a screenshot of it, share it with some of your friends. And there's no doubt that the conversation here could be beneficial to someone out there. So please leave a message. If you haven't done so already, subscribe so that way you're notified of future podcast episodes. Please leave a review, as they go a long way to expanding our reach. It makes a big difference on Apple iTunes. The more reviews, the better. They pop up on people's feed when they're popping up. And I think that we've got something really, really cool here that I want to continue to grow and expand. And share it with a couple of your friends. Like I said, take a screenshot. tag me in it. Let me know, that you listened and what your insights were. And we appreciate you. And if you haven't done so, check out the Do Hard Things store. You can go to jteagues.com, see what different coaching packages that we have, currently accepting applications for one-on-one coaching. And we're always looking for new growth-minded individuals to join the Forge family, where we have like weekly team calls and accountability on high performance topics and just have real discussion with other people. And I just facilitate the conversation. I learn as much as everyone else in the group. And it's been a fantastic community of people that are leveling up in every aspect of their life. So appreciate you listening. And until next time, keep doing hard things.